This morning in Rome, Pope Francis did something that only a pope can do. He made a new saint, Saint Mother Teresa. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah, that's a reason for joy. We can now call her Saint Teresa of Calcutta, or Kolkata, as they say in India, which is amazing because maybe most of us that are in this church right now were actually alive when she was alive. She's this living saint to us. We remember her well, and she was so loved. But maybe you've heard enough about her to know that she was also tough. Did you know that about her? She was tough. In fact, when young people would go over to India from the United States or other Western countries, sometimes they'd be filled with idealism and they'd say, "Oh, Mother Teresa, I know that my life work is to be here with you and to move to Calcutta and help the poor just like you do. I'm going to be right by your side." And she would say to them, "Go find your own Calcutta." She did. And she said that she did it because some of them maybe were called to be with her, but she had to test that call. If they could withstand that rejection and leave and then come back and say, "No, Mother Teresa, I've prayed about it and I'm convinced I belong here," then she would say, "Well, then come on in." But otherwise, she said, "Go do your work in your own town. There's people that need help everywhere." When I lived in Boston, I had some free time and I wanted to volunteer somewhere. So I found out about a system of orphanages there that had orphan homes in areas all around Boston. So I called them up to find out some information about volunteering. And they told me that they have a volunteer session every day during the lunch hour, 12:15. You can come by any day of the week on your lunch hour and we'll give you all the information you need. And I thought to myself, great, they're going to make this easy. So I went there on a weekday, and at 12:15 there were maybe 20 of us sitting in a circle with the volunteer coordinator, and they gave us tea, and she passed out her business card to all of us. And then she said, "I want you to know that we want a huge commitment from you. And when I tell you what it is, some of you will not want to do it. We want you, as a beginning commitment, to promise to come every single week to work with our students for 2 years. No missing. You've got to come every week for 2 years. That's the beginning level of commitment. And if you don't want to make that commitment, this is not going to work out for you." And she went on. "The kids that we serve have been through some of the worst suffering you can imagine. They've been through stuff that kids should never have to go through. And volunteers who lack commitment make their lives worse, not better. We've got to protect them from that. So unless you're completely committed, you don't want to volunteer here." Later on, it came up that somebody who had come in late said, "I came in late. Is there any sign-in sheet going around? I want to sign up and give my information." And she said, "There's no sign-in sheet, and please don't give me your name or number. I don't want it." She said, "I gave you my card. If you want to volunteer here, call me. I'm not going to chase you to volunteer here. We want committed volunteers. If this matters to you, I know you'll call me. And if not, I hope you find a volunteer opportunity that's right for you." Sounds kind of negative. I left going, whoa. But that's exactly what Jesus is talking about today too. It's exactly what he's saying. He says to the people, "Hi everybody, I know you all think that you like me and you want to follow me, but you probably can't do it. You probably don't want to enough. Do you realize if you're going to follow me, you've got to be willing to walk away from possessions. You've got to be able to let go of your goals and replace them with my goals. You're going to have to even be willing to leave your family. I don't think many of you can do it. If you can't do that, you can't be my disciple. You can't be my disciple." Oof. And he introduces a word there that's really interesting, disciple. That's always the word that he uses. It's a key word for us. It's a word that we only usually hear in church. Disciple means like an apprentice. A disciple is someone who doesn't just follow, doesn't just admire, but who is learning the craft. Someone who is completely in, all in, and they are learning the craft so that they can take over the family business someday. So this is really Jesus' mission statement. I came to make disciples. That's what I'm here for. And some people say, we admire you so much. And he's like, thank you very much, but I'm not looking for admirers. Other people say, I quote Jesus all the time. I always tell people about things Jesus said. He says, thank you very much, but I'm not looking for that. Other people say, I follow all of the rules that Jesus gave me. I am a good Catholic. And he says, that's good, but that's not what I asked for. I want you to become my apprentice. I want you to learn from me and follow me so that you can take over where I left off. So, great question for you and for me is, am I an apprentice of Jesus? Am I a disciple? Am I all in? The temptation, I think, is to say, of course, sure, why do you think I'm here? Of course I am. But I think Jesus would stop us and say, not so fast. Really? You would walk away from your goals? You'd walk away from your possessions, he asks? You'd really walk away from your family if I called you somewhere? You would? I'm a priest, and I don't think that I can say it. I want to be. I value it, but I'm not positive I'm available enough to God to do whatever, whenever. That's not easy for me. How is that for you? Many of us want to be disciples. I know that from talking to people in this parish. There's a lot of people who really want to make a big investment with God. But it's not something we can do in a day. It's something that we need to do week by week. We need to grow in that direction. That's because we're all in process. Our lives are never complete. We're always trying to grow. We're always trying to evolve. A friend of mine saw a tombstone once that had an amazing thing etched onto it. On the tombstone of this woman who lived a long life, it said, "Construction project complete. Thank you for your patience." Isn't that true? Thank you for being so patient. It was a long project, but it's complete now. We're all construction projects. So it's okay if we're not full disciples, if we're not the Mother Teresa of Cooksaki. But we are called to move in that direction. So here's a question for this week. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being somebody who just heard the name of Jesus yesterday, and 10 being Mother Teresa, where are you? How much of a disciple are you? Maybe 5, right in the middle, is an admirer. Someone who says, oh, I think Jesus was one of the greatest teachers who ever lived. And that's a wonderful thing to say, but it's not a disciple. Where are we on that? And wherever we are, if we're a 2, if we're a 5, if we're an 8, how could we move to the next number? How could I go from being a 2 to maybe a 4? How could I go from a 7 to being an 8 or a 9? Or maybe even one day a 10? What do we have to do to move in that direction? This isn't something that we can talk about in one day. This is a biggie. This is huge. This is the question. But I know from talking to people here that there are people hungry to go deeper. But just like that volunteer coordinator at the orphanage, Jesus does not sugarcoat it. This path is for sure the best way to live your life, he says, but it is not easy. And I don't think many of you are going to want to do it. It's filled with obstacles. But any path that doesn't have obstacles probably doesn't lead anywhere. And this path, it leads somewhere. This path leads to where words could never describe.